Greg, that was, to me, one of the defining moments today.
Oh, it truly was. At first I thought Sondland would say, well, my presumption was based on what other people told me. It's worse than that. As Turner pointed out, it's a presumption that he conjured up out of thin air. He didn't even get it from anybody else. There are two main points today, and you certainly heard one of them. But the other is that, Sondland underscored that the president said to him repeatedly, I want nothing, I want no quid pro quo. But he also then made a rather stunning admission when he said, I never heard the president say that aid was conditioned on an announcement of investigations.
Why then does it continue here? Why is this even an issue even at this point then?
It shouldn't be. But as my friend and colleague John Solomon pointed out, this is the, weapon of mass distraction. They know what's coming down the pike, the IG report, and this serves as their subterfuge.
Jordan Seculo, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, our takeaway is this. I mean, to just build on what Greg was saying, is then Sondland gets asked again, did you hear from anyone in the world, anyone on the planet that this was, and he says no. And to us, I mean, this was the most key moment because it contradicted the entire narrative from the beginning of his whole testimony. I mean, I saw Ken Starr talking about, Ken Starr was like, he's warning the warning labels, and then he heard that statement. He said, I can't even believe an ambassador of the United States would leave that clear cut of a statement out of his opening statement because it is literally what everyone has been talking about. Now, I think it gets to the point also that the attorney for the minority made, that this is again, someone who takes no notes. He doesn't remember anything. And he can't, when he says he can't get other people's documents, I want everybody to understand this. It's other people's documents. It's not he can't get access to his emails and text messages and his staff. It's he can't get access to whatever he wants at the State Department. And, he decided to not use executive privilege to put himself through this. I think as the president said, from what he knows from his dealings with him, he's been a pretty good guy. But, this is the only witness who's had the direct interplay with the president of the United States. He's admittedly said they really overplayed that interplay, and he kind of acknowledged that day it wasn't as much as it sounded like or they tried to imply it was. And then when it was, but also when he spoke to anyone else, no one ever said this. He's just presuming it. Now, I can understand why maybe at this point lots of people would presume that, because if you read news crawlers and things like that, you can start presuming it. So I think it's very clear that we make that point for everybody to understand that people are making this up. This is made up. This is just taking it out of thin air, not even basing it, as Greg said. It's not even basing it on what someone else told him. He didn't even try to make that.
It was one of the most stunning moments, I think, in this whole charade. I really do. I mean, I'm sitting there, and he's right. I mean, that's what the fake news media was doing, and I read the opening statement, and I said, okay, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't gel with what he said in his prior testimony. And then we get to the rationale and the reasoning behind it. Well, I just was listening to other people, so I put two and two together. But, yeah, the president did say, I don't want a quid pro quo. The president at no time ever said there's any linkage. He actually said the opposite, John Solomon. And, the White House, very cleverly, I thought, releasing the actual letter invitation to Zelensky with no ties to anything, to meet with the president in the Oval Office.
Yeah, listen, that's the most important part. When you get to cases like this, and we're going to get to a trial perhaps someday in the Senate, facts matter, statements matter, witness testimony matters, contemporaneous events and evidence matter. The contemporaneous evidence and the primary testimony clearly indicate the president wanted no quid pro quo tie between the aid and the investigations. He wanted investigations for the reasons he cited, but at the end of the day, there was no quid pro quo, which is what he's being charged with in this allegation of bribery or extortion or whichever term the Democrats have poll tested today. But at the end of the day, those facts are going to be very relevant to any trial attorney or any jury looking at it. Because
prior to this point, Gregg Jarrett, all we had were people's interpretations of what they thought of the transcript, which frankly is meaningless. It's all hearsay. None of it would be admissible in the Senate. And I can't imagine that the Chief Justice presiding over this circus, if it gets over there, and I'm assuming it probably will because that's how unhinged the Democrats are, would ever deny the president and his attorneys his Sixth Amendment rights, which is the right to confront his accuser.
You know, if the federal rules of evidence are invoked by the Senate, if that's what the majority wants to do, and they should, you know, none of these witnesses are going to be able to testify. The Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff is bereft of facts, so he's determined to remove the president from office based purely upon the opinions of others who surmised or imagined this quid pro quo that doesn't exist anywhere in the transcript of the telephone call. And now we learn from Ambassador Sondland that the president told him directly, not once but twice, there's no quid pro quo, and that aid is not tied to anything. And so none of these people could ever testify. They might, you know, someone might be able to say, this is what the president told me in that telephone conversation. But beyond that, all of these witnesses are nothing but rank speculation, conjecture, and hearsay. You know, this is impeachment by rumor and innuendo.
It's unbelievable. Now, there was an interesting story that came out today, Jordan Sekulow, from Zero Hedge, and the headline says a lot. The Ukrainian indictment claims $7.4 billion Obama-linked laundering puts Biden group take at $16.5 million for, quote, their services. You know, one of the things I'm really having a hard time here, that, you know, and I say it often, probably repeated too much, is that fire the prosecutor, you get the billion. Don't fire him, you don't get the billion. He knew his son was being investigated, and his son paid millions for zero experience. That gets under my skin.
Well, it doesn't. This is why trying to base the impeachment off of Ukrainian foreign policy, which, you know, that's what we've ultimately gotten to, is disputing over policy. And when you get to Sondland's point, it's not even that. It's like just presumptions over what you think, which almost sounds like he was setting up the president. I mean, just based off kind of how he said, like, why was he calling all these times and kind of asking it this way? It's like he was asking it this way, and the president's screaming back, I don't want him doing anything. Like, what do you, like, maybe even picking up on this, but at the same time, the recklessness here, because they've also, as we get every time at these hearings and every day, and anybody that's watching it, and the media they can try to cut around it when they do their clips later in the day, but they can't do it while people watch. Is that every day it's coming up, that this Biden and these questions about why are they even getting involved? When your dad's vice president, why get involved with any of these companies in Ukraine, with the mess that Ukraine was? And that if you're going to base things off Ukraine on either side, I mean, it's like, listen, they going after reporting, and John knows this very well now. Going after reporting because he talked to one Ukrainian, another Ukrainian says this Ukrainian is wrong, and that Ukrainian is wrong. We're also dealing with their, you know, you can talk to whoever you want to, it's politics too, but also at a level which is very different from, you know, being a reporter to deciding I'm going to actually be on their board. But, we're not going to talk about this. Now, I think that's the recklessness of Democrats. That's how bad they want to go after President Trump and a lot of these government officials from both sides of the aisle who work in the bureaucracy, who may have, you know, initially worked for Republicans, then they work for Democrats.
Well, but I want
to them just reading their talking points for them. And if you don't read their talking points, they try to take you down, and they don't like this. They don't. I mean, you can see they are so upset that they prepare talking points and this president decides to govern independently.
All right, we'll wrap things up. Amazing developments today. All right, wrapping things up. We only have about 20 seconds each. Final thoughts, John Solomon, 20 seconds.
Ukraine is Russia redo. It's a hearsay case that's going to turn out not to be true.
Wow, unbelievable. Gregg Jarrett.
Well, this is an example of how desperate Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and Jerry Nadler are, and Democrats at large in the House of Representatives, to call nothing but hearsay witnesses and witnesses who presume things. You know, that's not evidence. That's garbage. And that's essentially the only argument that Democrats have against the president. It's based on junk.
Last word, Jordan Sekulow. Last word, Jordan Sekulow. All right, we lost Jordan Sekulow. We're going to have to end it there. John, thank you.